One major concern with OLED screens is the burn-in effect. This is when the most used pixels on a screen burn out, leaving behind a ghost image. 2 years ago, I put an OLED Nintendo Switch to the test by burning in a screenshot of Breath of the Wild. It took about a good 5 months before showing any signs of burn-in, and even then, the effects were slight. So, naturally, I had to try this on the Steam Deck. I was a little bit late to the party. I got this Steam Deck sent to me by Valve back in November of last year, but I didn't want to start the experiment until I got my own OLED Steam Deck, because I like this so much I didn't want to be without one. And I really wanted that limited edition one. That one looked awesome. So I didn't want to start this until I think somewhere around January 1st. So it's been about 1,500 hours or like 63-ish days since I finally looked at the Steam Deck. I kind of anticipated this to take a while because this isn't my first time doing this. But I was working on a video last week that required me to use my Steam Deck, and my main Steam Deck wasn't working on the dock for some reason. It's since been fixed, don't worry, but I had to bust out the burn-in Steam Deck. And when you know, it's already burned in. The Breath of the Wild screenshot is burnt in, but it's extremely faint. You can only really see it on certain colored backgrounds. However, since this screen has a slightly taller resolution than a Nintendo Switch screen, I decided to put some funky testing bars on top. I figured some of these would burn in a lot quicker than a blooming light. And it did. Particularly the black bars in the corner. They're pretty apparent on pretty much every background, every screen. This is a much quicker result than what we saw with the OLED Nintendo Switch. The black and white bars up here in the corner burned in the quickest because it's just much easier to see. It's harsh lines. It's easier to tell where the burn-in starts and stops. I also put color bars in the top left corner that show exactly what subpixels burn in the fastest. Turns out it's blue and red. I think blue burned in slightly more. The subpixel pattern on the OLED Steam Deck is a bit strange. Green is pretty big, but blue has 2 big long subpixels. I'm not sure why blue lost here, if it has the most surface area. Also, I'm not sure why the black bar burned in on these colors. It's black on an OLED, so it should be off. I did this test using SDR, not HDR. The Fox over on his YouTube channel is using a program that he created to test both SDR and HDR using various nits of brightness. And his Steam Deck is absolutely... This makes sense. It's about 40% brighter at 1,000 nits of peak brightness versus my measly 600 nits at SDR. He also points out that anything above 75% brightness uses a sort of exposure gain to just make the image look brighter. So above 75% doesn't really matter, but I cranked my shit all the way up to 100% anyway because I didn't know any better. So I'm working with a max of 600 nits, but the OLED Nintendo Switch only has about 400 nits of brightness. And my understanding is that these OLED panels are relatively the same. They might even both be Samsung panels. Even the subpixel pattern is very similar. Maybe Nintendo limited the brightness of theirs on purpose? And honestly, maybe they were right to do so. You know, I walked away from the Nintendo Switch experiment thinking that it was pretty impractical. I think nobody's got anything to worry about. No one's going to be using a static image on their Nintendo Switch for 3,600 hours or however long it took to finally burn in. But a Steam Deck at just 1,500 hours might be a little bit concerning if you're playing a game with a lot of static UI elements. Notably, the hearts in Breath of the Wild burned in pretty quickly on the Steam Deck. I wasn't really concerned with people spending a lot of time in one game on the Switch, but on the Steam Deck, PC gamers love to dump thousands of hours into MOBAs, RTSs, MMOs, all of which have static UI elements. There are ways to prevent burn-in on a software level. There's pixel shifting, where the device will detect what elements are static on the screen and it will move them in a way that isn't detectable to the naked eye, but will be less strain on the device. And then there's auto-static content brightness dimming, which will dim these same areas. So UI elements, if they're too bright like they are in Armored Core. I reached out to Valve to see if the Steam Deck OLED had any sort of built-in features like this, and I haven't heard anything back yet. They actually did respond. Just took them like a day and a half. Hey Bob, Steam Deck doesn't use any of those methods. That said, we aren't aware of users having issues under normal use. Our hardware warranty covers issues with all Steam Deck components, including the display. So I think what that means is if you get burn-in, they'll replace it under warranty, but their warranty is, I think, 1 year. So chances of you getting burn-in within the first year is a little slim. Chances of you getting it a year and a half, 2 years are a little higher. Luckily, replacing the screen yourself is a little easier on the Steam Deck OLED. I still think the OLED Steam Deck is the better Steam Deck to get. The OLED does look fantastic. The black just melts away, especially with the matte screen. That's a controversial take, but I do like the matte screen more for that. Or more so, the slight boost in performance, 90 hertz, slightly better memory and battery life, it's just the better option. But I would just say, be careful blasting your brightness. This thing can get bright. 600 nits is already no joke. 1000 nits in HDR is just ridiculous. And honestly, I play mine mostly in bed, so my brightness is way down most of the time anyway. Even in my living room, I'm running this thing at like 25%, maybe 50% in the daytime. These are just some things to consider when you're playing your OLED Steam Deck. Are you spending thousands of hours in a game that has static UI elements? Maybe consider turning off HDR or lowering the brightness a little bit. Don't blast it so much. Or just play it on your computer if you're spending too long on the Steam Deck. Or just let it burn in. Is it really the end of the world if you get a little bit of burn in? These things are meant to be played. I'm not worried about mine, but I also don't play any game for over 1,000 hours at peak brightness. I just stare at one Breath of the Wild screenshot. Hey, if you like that desk mat, you can get it over at wolfdenapparel.com, or maybe you can click the little picture of it underneath this video if it worked, if YouTube put it there like they're supposed to. Anyway, what do you guys think about the Steam Deck OLED and the burn-in problems? Is this something you've experienced yet? Unfortunately, this is something that some people might actually have happened to them already. If you leave your thing pretty bright and you have over 1,000 hours in a game with some static UI elements, check that area on other screens. Like go to the Steam homepage and see if that element is still there. Leave it in the comments below, add me on Twitter, and all this other social media garbage. I'd like to see pictures. I forgot to say there are ways to fix the burn-in. If it's like this, there's like pixel refresher, but I think those are stupid because what that does is it burns in the rest of the screen, and that's just gonna slightly dim everything. So I don't like that. I'd rather it have some prevention measures. Hey, if you like this video, subscribe. There's a lot more videos like this coming up. We're also on twitch.tv/wolfden doing other quirky little fun tests like this. Of course, you can also share this video with a friend who might have one of these, and you might be concerned that they're burning in their stuff. Thank you very much. Have yourself a good week.